Num num. Birdie num num.
When I have understanding of computers, I shall be the supreme being. God isn't interested in technology. He knows nothing of the potential of the microchip or the silicon revolution. Look how he spends his time. 43 species of parrots. Nipples for men.
Don't do that, Jesus Christ! You're gonna get me killed! Out of here!
Oh, Billy.
I have nipples, Greg. Could you milk me?
Welcome, everybody, to AB Live. Welcome to a very special show. Even though in this world, men still have nipples and there are 43 species of parrots. I don't know if that's right, but welcome, everybody. And for those of you who might be listening on audio, by the time you're hearing this, I usually have a little intro, but not this time, just the quick music. Different than the YouTube and other channel audio, but I thought we would just jump right into it without you guys having to listen too much to our drivel. And lots to talk about tonight and lots of things to cover. I guess I should say happy tax day, whatever the hell that means. But yes, today is, I believe, the 18th tax day. And of course, all taxation is theft. What's the statistic? Here in the United States, you have to work 3 months for free to pay your taxes. I think in Europe, it's like 4 months. And as you can see, I'm sure when you think about it, you might be wondering, where does me working like a slave for 3 months, where does all that money go? That is the great question. And I certainly don't have a good answer if you'd ask me. But so, yeah, happy tax day, happy day of Mars, and day of Tyr. So very cool. See everybody already flooding into the chat section. As always, if you have questions, please super chat them, and we will get to you. And we'll keep an eye on the chat room so we can see what the thematic chaos, Dionysian mayhem that might be going there. So as always, it's very awesome to have my friend, collaborator, colleague, and old pal, Graham Pong at the Virtual Alexandria. Graham, how are you doing?
Very good, Miguel. It's always wonderful to be back here and see you and Vance. And I want to say thank you because this is a special one for me. This is a tribute to my math mentor, Dr. Hilton's 100th birthday. So, thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, on the 18th. Sorry, it's tax day, but a good celebration. And yeah, we're going to delve into this very fascinating figure and everything else that goes into it. And with us too, we've got the Moondog Vance. Vance, how are you doing?
I'm just fine. I'm interested to hear the personal slant on all the code breaking stuff. So, unusual technical subject for Ehon Byte.
Yeah, but I'm sure we can get into some of the more esoteric, fun stuff of the Nazis, because the villains that just keep on giving. So awesome. I don't think we have some announcements to make, but that can wait towards later in the show. Great shows coming up. I think on Friday we will have Mr. David Block give us the third part of his 4-part series on these enigmatic gods like Lucifer, Prometheus, Azazel, and so forth. He's going to be tackling Belial, who is the villain in Philip K. Dick's The Divine Invasion, and of course an infamous bad guy and demon. Grandpa keeps getting taken by the Nazis. I wonder what's going on. So what else? And then next week we've got a very cool a UFO documentary that's coming on. We'll talk more about it, and you will definitely be talking to the filmmaker and the director of it. So yeah, a lot of good stuff. Eduardo Cano will be coming on to discuss his new book on consciousness and the simulation. So very relevant Aeon Byte content. So lots of good stuff, and I appreciate those who are supporting and keeping this red pill cafeteria growing and the lights of the pleroma on. So Grandpa, what's going on? You keep disappearing. Is this sort of Nazi code taking you down?
Oh, it's either that or the Archons here.
Always the Archons, yes.
Always the Archons. No. Hopefully, my connection challenges won't be a problem. I'm glad I got you my slides earlier, so you can handle that end of it. So.
Good, yeah. Well, did you pay your taxes? I mean, the IRS did put 600 more agents. They should have all your money.
Well, I was going to say, is it even money anymore? Aren't we going digital? So.
That's the end game of the Archon. Speaking of, get us on digital, centralized. So, it's quite the racket. And of course, I was talking about taxes. Trust me, the elite, the 1%, the Karens and Catamites of the establishment, they're not working 3 months worth to give away their taxes. They're making sure this is on the back of the middle class and the poor people, as it always is. So.
I was going to say, go ahead,
Not to mention the Dogamites.
Indeed.
I was going to say, I think most of the 1% don't actually work. So there's.
Yeah. There's no taxes to pay. So they've already got the slave class, or what did Nietzsche call it? The slave mentality of the population. Yep.
No, so I'm ready to dive in whenever you guys are.
All right. I think everything's there. Everything's ready to go. I just wanted to give a little breathing room so everybody can get settled in the chat room, or who's getting behind their device. So let's get started. I guess we should start. You want to start with the presentation, or talk a little bit about your mentor?
I was going to say, why don't we just put that opening screen of my presentation up there, and then I'll just start talking about him.
All right.
Let everybody see the man himself.
You got it. There we have a picture of Dr. Peter Hilton, April 7th, 1923. He was born, and November 6th, 2010. And that's a picture from The Guardian.
Yep. And I was going to say that's a good shot of him. And I was going to say, now people pretty much know more about him than I knew when I met him, because I met him in it was either late 2001 or early 2002. When they were doing a seminar at University of Central Florida down here in category theory, which is a really esoteric field of math that it was being used as an alternate for foundations of math as an alternative to set theory. And I've been working on a project for, I don't know, probably about 20 years by that point in time, dealing with foundations of math, set theory, Gödel's incompleteness theorem, the Church-Turing thesis, all that sort of stuff. And it's like it's kind of tough. I wasn't able to figure out category theory on my own, saw the seminar. And unfortunately, the seminar was at a time when it was during my work day. So I gave a call to UCF, to his office, and little comedy of errors. He had moved the time on the seminar and thought that I was able to make the first time. So he felt committed to try to get me to learn category theory if he could, since he moved the time on me. So he said, come in and meet with me for an hour. So I went in, and we just hit it off from the beginning. We were he was explaining to me, he wanted to see what my mathematical knowledge was, see if I was going to be up to learning on it on my own. And he started in there, and he started talking about casting out nines, and he was saying how that was a different procedure to check your work on stuff. And then I explained to him, yeah, because it uses an entirely different method, which was exactly what he was going to go into. And then he had a joke about, 1 + 1 = 2 on average. And it was about estimation theory and all that sort of stuff. And I sat there and said that I had learned that from, my science classes, where that was digits of precision and stuff like that. And he goes, oh, no, it's based off of math. And then, we're talking back and forth, and he was asking me what my project was, and I explained to him. And, we were talking about that. When I was talking about the church Turing thesis, I asked him, I mentioned that I had found a structural flaw in the Turing test. And I explained, and he goes, "What do you mean?" And I explained that what the Turing test actually is involved with is testing to see if a human can identify another human. Because I've seen it run where the person just swears that that's a computer on the other side, even though it's a human. And it's basically, it presumes the idea that humans can identify sentience when they see it, as opposed to some internal structure for sentience. And he sat there and he listened to me. He goes, "You're right." And he said, "No, he never did," in a really wistful manner. And then I went into about how the awful things, the British government did to Turing because he was gay. And then Dr. Hilton, in a very measured tone, said, "What the British government did to Alan Turing was the greatest evil ever promulgated onto the future of mankind." Because he was only 41 when he died, and just all of what he was going to contribute to the world. And we kept going back and forth on a few other things. And at the end of the hour, he said, "You're truly gifted in mathematics, and I have no doubt that you can learn category theory from me. How do we go about getting you credit?" And I said, "Credit? I don't need any credit. I just want to learn the material." Then he laughed and he said, "Well, if you don't need any credit, I don't need any payment." So so he basically just gave me a free 3-year apprenticeship to just teach me whatever math that I wanted. Cool. And we became very, very good friends, just spent a lot of time together. And it was only afterwards I learned that he was Turing's best friend, and he did all the code breaking and all that sort of stuff. But
he was British?
Yeah, he was British. We can go on to the next slide.
Sure.
Yeah, no, this is he's talking about how he gets into math here, and when he was 10, he got, not he was in an accident, and when he was in the hospital, his leg was in a cast, and he used that as like a blackboard, and he found out he just really, really dug math, and it's just that's what he was into for the rest of his life. And the second one is a really, really nice quote, that he explains about about him as a teacher. And it's, just as any sensitive human being can be brought to appreciate beauty in art, music, or literature, so that person can be educated to recognize the beauty in a piece of mathematics. The rarity of that recognition is not due to the fact that most people are not mathematically gifted, but to the crassly utilitarian manner of teaching mathematics and of deciding syllabi and curricula in which tedious routine calculations learned as a skill are emphasized at the expense of genuinely mathematical ideas, in which students spend almost all their time answering someone else's questions rather than asking their own. And he was just a phenomenal teacher. And
very Pythagorean, huh?
Oh, I was going to say he had a lot of Epicurean in him as well, as we're going to get to coming up here, because he knew how to enjoy himself. He was definitely a character. So we can go on to the next one. He ended up, he was basically in getting out of high school in what would be high school in the U.S. in 1941-42. Right in the middle of World War II. And he was in a situation where he was basically going to be working for the Royal Artillery doing calculations in order to aim guns better. And it was just basically, rote calculations for him. And his advisor at his school sat there and saw an opening in the Foreign Office, and they were looking for a mathematician who knew European languages, modern European languages, and he'd been teaching himself German for a year. So he tried out, so he basically applied for it, and he ended up getting it. You can go on to the next slide.
Oh. Yeah, and it says here he was run over by a Rolls Royce. Even the elite back then were trying to take out the good ones.
It's better than being run over by a Jeep like Patton was. So
yeah, that's true.
And so he ended up, he was the only one who showed up at the interview, and they basically gave him the job. And when he reported into Bletchley Park, he was taken to Hut 8, which was where Turing was working, and they were working on breaking some codes at the time. And the first thing Turing asked him was about chess, and was wondering if he played chess, and was wondering if he had some problems they could solve. And they ended up being basically chess buddies and played for the rest of their lives together. And there's a pretty good quote there from him that talks about what he thought about Turing. And it says, Alan Turing was unique. What you realize when you get to know a genius well is that there is all the difference between a very intelligent person and a genius. With a very intelligent person, you talk to them, they come out with an idea, and you say to yourself, if not to them, I could have had that idea. You never get that feeling with Turing at all. He constantly surprised you with the originality of his thinking. It was marvelous.
Very cool.
Yeah, no, that's where he started with the working on the code breaking during World War II. And again, he never talked about much of that with me. Again, I think part of it is he had just been so trained to do so because of the Secrecy Act. Mm-hmm. And it was only, a few years earlier that you hit that 50-year mark and you could talk about it. Mm-hmm. And no, he talked about the one thing that he did talk about, and that's on the next page we can go to. So,
page 4. Peter Hilton at work and at play.
Yeah. So basically, it was one of those where he is one of the world's greatest human beings ever at creating palindromes. Those sentences that go the same way front and back.
Right.
And let me see. No, the one he came up with is Doc, note, I dissent. A fast never presents a fatness. I diet on cod. And up until, really computers started getting involved, that was the longest palindrome anybody had come up with. Wow. And he explained to me how he did it. And it was basically he would divide his consciousness into 2 parts. And he'd have each part working the sentences from each end. And, playing them off against each other. And, I was able to do similar stuff. And in that way, it was kind of neat because we were, interrelating with each other about how we think and how we create and things like that. And it was just, he was such a great teacher and great educator for me. But, back at, go ahead, Miguel.
51 letter palindrome for those who are curious.
Yeah. And when he was at Bletchley Park, he was a big drinker. He was big at the pubs, always told dirty jokes, bawdy jokes. He was just, well, he was like 18 and hanging around with professional mathematicians. He was totally out of his depth, and he was just enjoying it, and
yeah, he would have been kicked out of the U.S. Army today. Not politically incorrect. No, and that's what Meg, his wife, he met her through the theater. She was big into British theater, and that was she was definitely something. They were a match pair. She was really sharp and really good. I never got to meet his son Timothy. I got to meet his son Nicholas. But no, I was going to say in the Bletchley Park one, it was there's so many things to talk about there, like you got the whole machine working. You have so much that Turing was going with and going in that one. And like I said before, it's a lot of that has been explored a whole lot. I'm happy to talk about what I know about that, because most of what I know I've gotten out of books as well. Mm. And what does it say? He did not use paper, pencil, or composing, but lay on his bed, eyes closed, and assembled it mentally over one night. It took him 5 hours. That's a palindrome. Wow.
Yeah, and that was what I was talking about, where he split his consciousness. He just laid back and, like I said, split his consciousness. It was running the sentence from both ends to the middle at the same time. And it was a game that they would play there. And again, that goes with the code breaking. You know, they were trying to, stretch their minds and do all sorts of stuff. But they used to have palindrome contests going back and forth, and that was the one that won it for the whole time at Bletchley Park.
Wow, impressive. Very impressive. Shall we go to slide 5?
Yeah, go slide 5.
Here we are, Peter Hilton career, and that's quite a resume.
Yeah, no, he one of the things that you'll notice there is he ended up leaving England pretty much right after Turing was killed. And that was pretty much what he the opinion that he pretty much left me with was he was of the opinion that it wasn't suicide and it wasn't an accident, that it was the British government that did it to him. And that's one of the reasons why he never ever accepted any award from the British Crown. Never got knighthood, OBE, none of it. And he gave a good line when he explained to me that what he told people when he stepped down, because when he was at the Mason chair of pure mathematics, that's basically a lifetime position. That's like an end of career position. And his line was he was leaving the position in order to let a much older man take it. Because that's usually a position you get when you're up in your 60s and 50s and 60s, and here he was, in his 30s. And he just wanted, he never went back for a permanent position in England. It was something that, again, he thought what happened to Turing was the greatest evil ever. So,
and for the audience who might not know, Turing wasn't. Is it really just because he was gay? There had to be more than that.
Well,
the evil empire will look over these things if they can get a good cog in their wheel.
Well, that was one of the problems, is Turing wasn't any sort of cog. he was going to be touring and doing his thing. As they say, he was just too innocent. He didn't realize that he couldn't say those things or do those things.
Yeah, he was a wild card.
And the other one that I found out since Dr. Hilton died is I've been looking some into the research he was doing into biology, and that stuff it's still cutting edge these days. They're still trying to catch up with what he was doing. And that could have been one of the ones where he was just pushing too far in that direction, and can't have anybody pushing the envelope too far.
Yeah, no kidding.
And again, with the his stuff in the biology is well worth looking into. I'm still trying to sort through it. It's one of my back burner projects. But no, it was nice to see that it wasn't just the homosexuality. But even though homosexuality is no excuse.
Oh, of course not. There is no excuse. Yeah. Agreed. Well, hopefully his work didn't end up in Wuhan lab or somewhere like that.
No, I think that's somebody else's stuff. So
exactly. Yeah, plenty of this stuff being worked on. And yeah, what amazing resume he had. Binghamton University, New York, of course, like you said, the University of Central Florida. He was in Zurich, New York, Barcelona. He did some teaching, Lausanne. No idea where that is, but yeah, he was definitely a big guy.
Oh yeah, no, it's one of those when I met him, he was, one of the greatest living mathematicians at the time. He was 84. So, again, when you get 84, you end up having a good chain behind you. But I had no idea how important he was when I met him. So now we can go on.
You weren't like Matt Damon in Good Will Hunting. It's not the same plot, is it?
It was close to that one, and I think I met him not only a couple of years after Good Will Hunting. So that could have been part of what was on his mind. It wasn't on mine because I hadn't watched Good Will Hunting yet at that point.
Okay.
But no, it's just as he sat there and said, he had never had anybody just walking off the street that was able to learn something like category theory before. And because I was able to, he, as a math teacher, felt compelled that he needed to try to teach me. If I could understand it, he felt compelled to teach me. And again, he's impressive because one of those great links for me in those 6 degrees of separation, since like he knew Einstein and such.
Yeah, World War II, all those guys working together or knowing of each other, it makes sense.
Especially after you survive it, you're in one of those survivors clubs.
All right, let's go to slide 6, media portrayals. And yes, of course, you have the movie, The Imitation Game.
Yeah, and he was a supporting character in there. And again, he was the youngest one. And pretty much everybody sat there and said that he was the brightest of all of the code breakers, the youngest and the brightest. And, the character that he played in the movie was very, very different than the real Peter Hilton, because he was not like shy or yeah, he didn't have a brother who was in the who was on a ship, and again, they took a lot of liberties with the story. They always do that in movies. As long as you know that you're expecting that in a movie, as opposed to that this is what actually happened, you're good. And again, I enjoyed it. It was nice to see him up on the him getting some portrayal up on the screen, because that was one of the issues with those code breakers, is they just were not able to get a lot of recognition because of all the secrecy behind it.
Exactly, and here he was trying to break the code Enigma. That was the German code, right?
Well, Enigma was the one that they had. I don't know if they had broken Enigma by the time Dr. Hilton had gotten there, or if that one. But the one they were looking on later were Tunny and Fish, which were more complicated codes. Enigma was the one that they were using early on, and to a large extent, the Polish had broken Enigma. And they had there was a big meeting between the Polish code breakers and the British ones, where the Polish handed off their work on Enigma because they felt that there was going to be the invasion. Russia and the Nazis were going to invade Poland, and they wanted to get that there. That ended up becoming part of the basis for the whole Bletchley Park, and they ran with it from there too.
Yeah, I love that about history. It's always, oh man, Hitler invaded Poland, and then you forget that Russia invaded Poland from the other side. Both two fascist countries were doing what they were doing, being fascists.
Well, yeah, they had an agree that I think they had the borders worked out before the first tank rolled over there. We're gonna get this part, you're gonna get that part, and everybody's gonna be happy except the Polish people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but Roosevelt and Churchill weren't decrying the Russians. Well, they bitched about the Bolsheviks before the war, but then they kind of tapped around Stalin.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
That's it.
So moving on.
Let me see. Imitation Game. Yeah, for the audience, it's a good movie. I enjoyed it, and yeah, very tragic. It's very bitter at the end. It's one of those, how the hell did it happen? But that shit happens all the time.
Yep.
Now we got some quotes.
Yep. And these are so totally him. Mathematics should be fun. Mathematics is for lazy people. Yeah, and adaptability to change is itself a hallmark of successful education. And here he's talking about, no wonder that Churchill described this effort, the British code breakers working at Bletchley Park, as Britain's secret weapon, a weapon far more effective than the buzz bombs and the rockets that Wernher von Braun designed for a German victory, a weapon absolutely decisive in the judgment of many in winning the war for the Allies. And along that front, the estimations I've seen is it shortened the war by about 2 years and saved about 14 million lives.
Oh.
And computation involves going from a question to an answer. Mathematics involves going from an answer to a question. And the last one is, it's a wry commentary on the value system of the United States that one speaks there of teacher training and driver education.
I don't know what to say about that one. What is he saying?
Well, they should educate teachers, right? And driving is a training.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, okay, I get it.
You'd have gotten along well with Dr. Hilton, Vance.
Oh, I'm sure.
That was one of the jokes he told. I took a theory of everything class. It was a combination class that he taught alongside a physics teacher who had worked with Brian Greene. And they put together this one and went into group theory and all that one. And he told a joke at the beginning of the class, and he sat there and said that he was going to split the difference between America and Britain and spell program, P-R-O-G-R-A-M-M. And it's like, nobody laughed. And it's like, I had to chuckle. It's like, oh, they don't even understand why that's funny.
That's a good joke. That's a good joke.
It's that wry British sense of humor. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. And the last one is a list of his awards.
Let's see. Awards for Dr. Peter Hilton.
Yep. And some of the highlights there for me is the conference in '83 for his 60th birthday, where they had an entire conference just for his birthday. And it was like, he invented the field of homotropic algebra. And again, he was actually pretty important. Again, stuff that nobody ever even learns about it existing and all. But that's kind of the fun part sometimes.
It is. There's so much in history, so many interesting and impactful characters. It's always good to learn about them instead of the usual big guns. But then sometimes that's what Hollywood does right. It will focus on somebody like that here and there and get down the rabbit hole, and it's very cool.
Yeah, no, and it's, I appreciate your chance to let me air out some of his interesting history for his 100th birthday and give him toot the horn a little bit for him. And now I'm ready to talk about the code breaking and stuff with the questions people have now that covered who the man was.
Mm-hmm. And when did you lose? Did you keep in touch with him?
Oh yeah, no, I kept in touch with him. He died in 2010. Not as much after I finished my project I finished my project in 2004 with him, and that was a good experience. And some of the stuff he talked, that we spent together, it's like he worked me through Cantor's diagonal proof, because I kept having problems with that, and I kept remembering him. He would just sit there and smile at me and goes, "You'll figure it out." And it's like eventually I'd beat my head up against the wall until I did. It was very interesting to talk to him. We usually spent about the first 5 minutes of our sessions in the spring of 2003 talking about the upcoming invasion of Iraq with Bush administration. And again, it was all that conversation was always within the overarching context of, he knew about true tyrants like Hitler and invasions and things like that. And we were both like, this is some sort of farce going on there. And 2004 was when I finished up my project, and it's like I delivered him. It's sort of like, finishing up my dissertation and stuff. And after a few weeks, he handed it back to me, and he delivered the shit sandwich there. I should assume you guys know what that is. That's where you get that's where you give good news, and then you give the bad news, and then you give the good news, because you don't want to just lead with the bad news. So it's something. I was explained to me, and that's the corporate term for it, is the shit sandwich.
Right. Yeah, I've heard of that.
And it's like he sat there and he started with, with the exception of a few typos and some poor word choices that I had 100% proved what I had set out to prove, and I successfully completed it. Then he criticized me because I used proof by contradiction in 3 of my proofs, which he sat there and said that was the lazy way out. And he saw constructive proofs that I could use that would then qualify my mathematics under Broward's intuitionist math rather than the more liberal sets of assumptions. And I explained to him that I can see that where that could happen, but I needed to get it done because he was leaving UCF in 2004, and my son was being born in August, so I just needed to get it done. And the last part of it was he sat there and he broke out into a huge smile. And he sat there and said that my work was brilliant. It was unlike any mathematics he had ever encountered. It was beyond his understanding and capabilities, and it had absolutely no real-world applications that he knew of, which is the highest compliment somebody can give a piece of mathematics. A mathematician can give a piece of mathematics. There's no use for this. It's just pure math.
Only in the Pleroma or Plato's World of Ideas would this work or something.
Yeah, one of my professors told me something like that one time. I was in class and I said, "Wow, I could really use this." This is what? Who cares? Mathematics is for its own sake.
And that's exactly it. And Miguel hit it out of the park. You're dealing with Plato's forms when you're doing math. That they're transcendent. They have no connection to reality, because that's the whole inexplicable use of mathematics. Why should it be useful?
But at the same time, it's not static. That's why it wouldn't work in Plato's World of Ideas.
Well, and that's the debate among mathematicians: is are they the Platonists, or is it?
Yeah, I've heard that argument. Yeah.
Well, mathematics is like a whole world. You build up an algebra or something like that, or some sort of system. You start with the axioms, you build it all up, and there are laws that emerge and so forth. It's like world building,
Oh, exactly. And that was where my project was dealing with, foundations of mathematics, where you're dealing with the various different axioms for sets or just how you're sorting the things. And I was trying to, one of the things was I was trying to explore where I saw Cantor had an odd definition for a set thing. And he combined 2 operations into one. And I basically parsed those apart and showed how they were basically 2 different uses of the same apple. Again, I'm getting into highly technical stuff. So
yeah, math ain't my thing.
Yeah. You know what I want to know? I want to know if Dr. Hilton, what he thought of computing, because by, close to the end of his life, computers were pretty much commonplace. Did he make use of them, or was he a paper and pencil guy till the end, or how did he interact with computers, if at all?
He didn't do a lot of his actual math on computers because a lot of his stuff was too abstracted for that. He wasn't opposed to it, and he definitely saw some uses on it. It was, again, he wasn't a big fan of them using the brute force method for proving things, where you just basically take every example possible, check it out, and see if it works or not.
The Monte Carlo method.
Well, again, it's how they crack passwords if they really need to. You try every combo password you can until one of them breaks.
The shotgun.
Because part of it is there's always, his approach was there's always going to be some underlying reason why things are the way they are. And it's up to the if there's mathematics, it's up to you to tease out the pattern and figure it out. And now we're getting back to the whole code breaking thing, because that's the essence of the code breaking. Where you have the.
Don't you always say that math is just a language, a model to describe reality? It's not reality. Something we came up with.
Well, it's a model. Oh yeah. Well, it's that's what I say. It's the universe. Here's what I say. The universe isn't mathematical. Mathematics is a language by which we model the universe.
Right.
Because there are many different mathematical constructs that you could superimpose on observations, that you see in the universe. and what we see is only partial anyway. Look at how many dimensions does string theory have now? 11. And then they have a problem, and so they add another dimension. Pretty soon next year.
We need another dimension. We're stuck with our formulas.
Looks like we lost Graham there for a second. He'll be back.
He's in another dimension.
Yeah, there he is. Okay. Yeah, we lost you to another dimension there.
Yeah. No, I went to the 12th dimension apparently. No, you're right. String theory. It's 11 dimensions, and I was going to say the overarching one now is M theory, where they showed that basically all of those various versions of string theory are the same, are basically different formulations of the same theory from a higher dimension. So it's either, I forget the details right now. It's either string theories are 10 and the M theory is an 11, or string theories are 11 and M theories in 12. But it's similar like with like what they found out with quantum mechanics with the Heisenberg wave function versus the matrix modeling that was being done as well. And they were like two different approaches. One was the matrix one was doing it from a particle standpoint, and they proved that mathematically they were different. They were the same theory expressed in two different mathematical structures. And that was where the Copenhagen one came around, is nobody could explain why that would be. And that's where they had the whole particle wave and all that sort of fun conundrum stuff there.
Well, let me ask you this, Graham. Obviously, these geniuses or titans of physics and math that came into the early middle of the 20th century. I mean, what we have today with these reductionist materialists, they're like ants compared to these giants, including Dr. Peter Hilton, tells us how we're devolving as a species or as a culture, because again, this is Hermetic learning. In other words, it comes from somewhere else probably. And we know like Einstein, Heisenberg, Niels Bohr were very influenced by Jewish mysticism, Eastern thought, Taoism. They like to meditate. They really like to do these things to keep their mind, to expand their minds. What about Peter Hilton? Was he into anything like that? Besides, or was he, like you said, the hedonism was what got him out? Dionysus.
With that visualization, talent of his, he might have been able to, receive things from outside.
Yeah, no, he was definitely into meditation. Again, he may not have even called it that. And he was not particularly religious. He was pretty much pure truth. And that's one of those things, is religion tends to put group priorities over the truth. And so.
Well, what about philosophy, though? In other words, didn't he wonder, where it all came from, where the universe came from? Was he a traditional, Big Bang guy and just kind of went along with the physicists, or did he ever think about that, or was he too immersed in his mathematical reality to even think about it?
Well, I think I was going to say, I think Miguel hit on a big key feature there about the difference between these people and the current crop is materialist. Right. Most of those people back then, they weren't actually materialists. Many of them, you had some duology ones, and for the most part, it was more of matter was something that was being produced from something more primitive. And I think that's some of where Hilton was, is again, he was probably similar to where you're at, Vance, where it's us parsing the world is what's creating the mathematics and the matter and all.
Right.
It's not that the matter is in and of itself inherent. And that's where a lot of these people are, is as soon as they decide that again, it's sort of the being becoming. It's, matter is a being, and that that's all they're working on, and they lose track of the becoming at that point. So.
Makes sense. Well, awesome. Thanks for the super chat there, Mr. Occult Fan. I don't have a question. Chester, thank you for the super chat. Hope you're doing well. A couple of people were asking what I was drinking. No, this is not beer. This is Sioux City sarsaparilla. I've always wanted to say sarsaparilla all my life. I found
sarsaparilla.
Sarsaparilla here. made with cane sugar. It's root beer, guys. Just root beer. So it's really good root beer too. Sioux City root beer. And yeah, hope everybody's doing well. Well, I wanted to, before we maybe take some questions or talk about the code breaking or the Nazis themselves, maybe a little announcement. Graham is going to be joining the Virtual Alexandria. He's going to be creating some extra content from his amazing research and how he's moved mountains and on Reddit. For Aeon Byte, this will include a sort of a bi-weekly content thing, which he will expand in a second, but it's going to be awesome. It will include audio, reading materials on a plethora of subjects. And again, this is a solution I'm coming up with. As many of you know, the show has been just growing. It really exploded right at the pandemic. That's when I said these are Gnostic times. People want the Gnostic idea of simulation and archons and inner worlds and all that just really resonated. And this podcast exploded. Very blessed. But recently it's been like, it's growing so much, but the support has been dying off, and it's been an issue. Well, taking care of the overhead. So I've been talking to Graham and others to sort of get it more connected. And I know I had like a friend call the other day. Is like, well, of course you're growing because you're putting out more podcasts. And I'm like, aha, you are right, but you are wrong, because even when you look at the metrics, the views per show has been growing. Or what's the other metric that's important? The amount of time, if you go to YouTube, other places, the amount of time, you'd be surprised. Most people don't finish your podcast. So you're always trying to get it as much. And the viewing time for the podcast has also increased. So I'm thinking of ways, solutions to perhaps grow the support, and their support has grown, and I really appreciate it. But we want to continue. Again, I like everybody else, I worry about paying my bills at the end of the month. I live a pretty bohemian lifestyle, and I pretty much keep everything pretty affordable. There are tiers, for example, Patreon, where all you have to do is pledge $3 a month, or Red Circle, you can pledge $4.99 a month. Even as Vance, we have not raised the prices since before the pandemic. I think we might be the only organization in the whole planet Earth that has not raised the price, because again, it's not about the money. I want the connection, the gnosis. But again, it's just nice to be able to take care of overhead and be able to invest in very cool stuff and to keep the content coming, because we need this gnosis more than ever. So I'm going to get off my code box. And Jesus, you must pray and give me your money in the name of Jesus Christ Almighty. Like Robert, was it Oral Roberts and those guys? Like, if you don't give me $1 million, I'll die. No, it's not like that. It's not like that. Jesus Christ. Well, Graham, so I spoke a little. Tell the audience what you're going to be providing. Very excited.
Yeah, no, I'm excited too, because it's been a while. I haven't done any new snippets in a while, and I have probably a couple hundred or so in various stages of completion there. And if people are familiar with my writing from Reddit and that one, where a snippet is, I describe it, it's not bunked, it's not debunked, it's just sort of, it's a creative writing piece that I do off of my research, and it's basically in the in a gonzo spiritualism, gonzo journalism style, much like Hunter S. Thompson, very, very pataphoric. I describe it as needs to be at least 3/4 baked in a nice, crunchy, tasty candy coating that people can enjoy. And if I can't fit those two pieces together, the snippet's not ready yet. But it's been a couple of years since I've gotten any new ones out. And I've been wanting to get some new ones. And when I heard you were having, just inexplicable, revenue situations happening, it's like, oh, this may dovetail together. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to put out one every other week, sort of do a Snippet Sunday sort of thing. Every other week, put out a new snippet. And then probably also do a Q&A on the other alternative Sundays. And I'm going to do a lot of that via a Discord server that I would run, and all of that would be, as part of your Patreon. And we need to figure out exactly what levels, different things would be happening at. But I'm excited to, get some more of my content out there, get some new content. And again, I've got some really exciting stuff going on.
Awesome. Yes. And this will be also for AB Prime, Patreon. Again, not much. And you will get even extra. Don't forget the Finding Hermes group, where we meet every 2 weeks and I do presentations on Gnosticism. We have a Q&A. I need to mention it more because I had one listener like, I didn't even know this existed. I've been a subscriber all these years about Finding Hermes. But then again, one of those things, I really do focus on the content, on the Gnosticism. If you guys listen to my intros, I don't talk much about this. I'm always like, let's get this shit out. Let's get this gnosis out to the world. And what are some things, Graham, you are going to be discussing? Maybe whet the beaks of the audience.
Well, there's one that we've talked about that we have coming up here that I'd like to do in June, the 50th anniversary of Secretariat's Belmont win, and doing that one as an autopsy of a miracle. Oh. Because it's basically I'm going to break down the some of the spiritual science behind that event and how miracles happen. Mm. More beyond that one. I definitely have the some of my emerging theory of the origins of Christianity and everything. It's a very much
you told me that. That's really awesome.
Yeah, they call it right now, for lack of a better term, the dynastic wave theory.
Yeah, where it's completely new audience and completely in a very good evidence, somewhere that's beyond or hasn't been addressed yet.
So I'm excited about that one, and that one then will definitely be a series of unveils on that one as we work our way through that. And again, it's just that's scratching the surface. A snippet that I have almost done is the tombs of Alexander the Great, where I trace all the different tombs that he has and where his body has been and that sort of situation.
Oh, and, yeah, that one's amazing. Yeah, you showed me that. Yeah.
Wow, he was traveling around even after he died, huh?
That was exactly what happened. He died in Babylon, and then they stuck him in honey because that's what they used to preserve people back then. And they built that giant cataphract for him, and they were going to take him back to Macedon. And then Ptolemy in Egypt just decided, nope, I'm going to body snatch Alexander, and drew him back down to Egypt.
Just
lots of fun.
Traveling man.
No,
yeah, even death didn't stop him.
No, nothing stops them. These things are created. Yeah, somebody was correcting people. It's not Macedonia, it's Macedonia. I'm like, oh my God. It's like people, if you dare to spell Kiev with an I instead of a Y, or something. Or if I say Cybele, they go, it's Kaibel.
Peking and Beijing, and that still drives me nuts.
And then I've heard Kaibali as well.
Kaibali, yeah. But yeah, it's God, busy bodies today, even in the esoteric. Can't win.
Everybody wants to be right about something.
Bombay, Mumbai, that's another one.
Oh my God.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was trying to think of that one. Yeah.
Oh well. At least we don't call Kenya Rhodesia anymore. That's good. But yeah, awesome. Well, it should be good. And again, please support. So why don't we talk a little about Codebreaking? Here's a little question somebody had. Do you see that? Does Graham know if Peter Hilton's A Mathematical Tapestry is worth getting hold of?
No, definitely. That I was going to say there's a video out that he did for the the London Mathematical Society in '96. It's an hour that he did. It's called New Wine in Old Bottles, and he breaks down the Fibonacci series and a whole lot of the math behind it. And it's just a wonderful presentation. It shows just what a great mathematical teacher and mind he is. And a lot of the stuff he did with Dr. Peterson as well is she did a lot. She was his a major collaborator towards the last part of his life, and a lot of it with mathematical education. Their stuff is wonderful.
Well, there you have it, Carswell. I hope that answers your question. Vance, do you have any questions about code breaking and Nazis? Anything?
Well, yeah, here's another computer question. I know they used a lot of computers, and in fact, I'm going to switch real quick. And you know that movie, A Beautiful Mind? Does that have anything to do with all of this?
No. Beautiful Mind was that was prisoner dilemma and game theory, and that was a totally different area of mathematics than what they were dealing with the World War II. No, what they were dealing with in World War II on the computing front was they were building the I want to say the Colossus was the first programmable computer where they could go back in. Before that, everything was hardwired.
Yeah.
And
there's a lot of. Go ahead.
I was going to say Beautiful Mind that's like iterated prisoner dilemma and things like that one. The closest thing that would get to from World War II is I learned this one in my economics classes was my mathematical modeling teacher when we were learning matrix modeling of the economy. He explained to me why Hogans Heroes had the joke about blowing up the ball bearing factories. And that was because when they did the matrix modeling in World War II of the German economy and war production, the most critical feature was the ball bearing plants, because it's such a specialized machinery in order to produce them, and they're used in every sort of machine, vehicle, and everything else. And that, as well as oil, were the two things that the Germans were most critical on. And you can see what the Allies targeted their bombings on, and they made a joke out of that in Hogans Heroes.
Hey, how about the number stations? Did they try to break the codes from the number stations? That's been an enigma, quote unquote, no pun intended, for a long time. All the shortwave stations where they just some announcer starts mentioning all these different numbers, and it goes off around for hours and hours. People think it's spy codes, and that must be some sort of code.
Definitely. I don't have any good answer for what those number stations might be. Again, spy code makes sense. Who's spying on who is another one. On the spy ones that I found interesting stories was back in World War II was Lucille Ball, where she busted a spy ring because she had her fillings in there. She was picking up some Japanese shortwave radios on her drive into the studio.
I just read that on Facebook today.
Oh my God. Seriously?
Yeah. Turned out to be a secret Japanese transmitter, that was operating underground somewhere on her way from the studio.
Hilarious that you just read that today, Vince.
I know.
I did. No kidding.
No, Lucille Ball. So yeah, she did something good, and of course her other great feat. Well,
Star Trek.
Star Trek. She was produced Star Trek. So God bless her. You know who else was a big fan of Star Trek, Vance? Elvis. He
really?
Was obsessed. Yeah. In fact, he almost got to visit the set. Who's the creator? Gene Roddenberry.
Right.
Elvis kept asking, "I want a tour, man. Give me a tour," but it never worked through. But yeah, he loves Star Trek.
I had no idea. He had good taste.
Mm-hmm.
I said I did not know that about Elvis. I did get to tour Graceland once, and that's an impressive house.
That's my goal. Once I get this book out, I need before it comes out or after, go visit Graceland, see what's up there.
Did they take you to the bathroom where he spent his last moments?
No, they keep most of the private areas off limits, like the bedrooms and all. You get to see more of like the living rooms and the farm. They have horses and where the barns and where they have all the Elvis's jumpsuits set up, and they have his planes there and his cars that are in a different building, and they got a nice little complex. it was definitely worth the trip. It was an enjoyable day.
Very cool. Very cool. Oh, that
Probably
definitely
has
have to
secret
check it out.
rooms. Huh? He loves spy stuff. He probably had, secret tunnels and so forth between rooms. He could sneak around.
Mm-hmm.
What about that, Graham? You think he had secret passages inside the Graceland?
Actually, I'd have to say no, since Graceland was built before Elvis was there. I mean, I would quite possible Elvis built something, his own secret rooms. He had more than enough money to do anything he wanted, but I don't think it had him when he bought it, and he didn't build it all himself from scratch.
Yeah, plus it was pointless. He always had a huge entourage of bodyguards and hangers on. I mean, that's why one of the reasons he was in the bathroom is because it really was the only time he could be alone. You know what I mean? He always had somebody out there, hundreds of people sometimes. So that's where, he died on the throne. In my book, I'm going to show that, yes, the king died on his throne, but it was actually a whole funeral rite. What he was wearing, what he was reading, it was all orchestrated. For what? We don't know. Lots of conspiracies, let's put it that way.
Always.
Yeah.
Including the one that he didn't die. That's
a big one. Well, I think there's a lot, and I'll show it in my book, but the one that really nobody's ever been able to figure out is his death certificate is in his own handwriting. And I mean, professionals have shown the two, like Elvis writing and his death certificate, are like, how the hell did he write his own death certificate?
Because he faked his death, right? That's the implication.
Well, yeah. I mean, I can't say I'm agnostic, but that's one of the weird things there. But anyway, let's get back to yeah, exactly. He was very Gnostic. Why don't we get into some code on the Nazis? So, Graham, in your estimation, do you think the Nazis were as occult influence as people have said, or is that kind of overplayed? I mean, people say it was probably, I don't know, Himmler and a few others.
No, I would say that the core of the Nazi Party was very, very occult oriented, especially the what was left over after the Night of Long Knives purge. Really? Yeah, no, because you had the whole blood flag from the right, from the beer hall push, where you had the blood-soaked flag, and that was something that was used in occult stuff, and it was very much an outgrowth of the whole, Vril society, and that they were a lot of the groups that ended up being involved with the Nazis. And Dietrich Eckart was basically one of the big occult minds, behind the Nazi Party, as it went from just the workers and added Hitler and became the Nazis as we know them.
And what about Hitler? What about Hitler himself? Do you think some say he used whatever he could do to get whatever he needed to get?
Well, yeah, there was that one, and to a large extent, you have to view any of those leaders as in a bubble where they don't always know what's going on. It's like he was kept ignorant of stuff that his inferior, like Himmler, would not tell him stuff that he didn't want Hitler to know. And so he was charismatic. He was a psychotic madman, destroyed millions of lives. But again, how much he knew about everything was a different story. He was basically the front man for the band.
Great.
What a band too. Yeah, it's and the code was the Nazi code was this a normal thing in war? Or was it just so advanced they really had an advantage over the Allies?
Well, I was going to say codes have been is a part of war, going back to Julius Caesar with the Caesar cipher, where you move the alphabet three letters over. And no, they had a new one, and it was with the machines, where they were able to basically generate a new key via an algorithm. And where before there was a lot of, you had to have a static key, this became a mobile key that was being based off an algorithm on the machine. And that was a big, huge advancement. And they didn't think that there would be any way to break it, abstractly. They thought you would have to have another machine in order to duplicate it. And that was, that was their big error. That, and again, they'd make mistakes of, repeated letters would often trigger the machine in funky ways that they were able to pick up on in the code. And the worst ones were when they would send 2 subsequent messages using exactly the same sequence of dial settings. And, it's little mistakes like that which made the big difference in breaking the codes.
And around what year was this? 43, 44 they broke it, or before that?
Well, they broke Enigma. Like I said, I don't know for certain on Enigma. It was 42 or 42 or even before that they did, because it was before Poland. I think Poland was 39. So they probably had that one, and they had more advanced ones at the time, and they kept pushing that one. And towards the end of the war, they realized that they had to. They earlier only reset the settings on the dials. Like the one dial was every quarter, the other one was like every week, and it was only like in 44 that they went to daily resettings. So they knew something was up, but they didn't. It was too late because it had been broken. The big thing was the computers being able to test this, being able to decode the settings for the machine that quickly. And once they had decoded the settings for the machine, that allowed them to decrypt the messages quickly. So it's a matter of that's where the computers came in, was being able to process and basically reverse engineer what they had set their dials for that day.
And I want to say it shortened the war. What are some examples? Because I mean, by 44, Germany was in a lot of trouble. They had way overplayed their hand. They were out of resources. Things were going south. I mean, what advantage did it give them? Do we have examples?
Oh, I don't know on any specific examples of that one. The general idea is you would know where different convoys were going. You'd know. You basically, it's like you're able to see exactly what the other person's doing, and you're trying to, take advantage of that without them letting them know that you know. And that's where it's tough to come up with examples. And again, that's the
secret. It's all spycraft. Yeah.
Again, one of my favorite ones from World War II spycraft was that Man with No Name, where they took a corpse that that nobody knew what the name was, and they gave him a fake ID as this intelligent agent and had him wash up on behind enemy lines and feed him all full of like false information and stuff, and just give a total canard to the people. And again, all the sorts of spycraft that they went into in World War II is just amazing.
Yeah, well, that's a tale as old as time. I mean, some say Pythagoras was a spy for the Greeks in the Persian court.
Really?
Heraclitus, same too, in the Persian court. And it goes over and Swedenborg. I mean, there's something about occultism and spycraft that'll always be joined, because the two ways of seeing through normal reality and understanding the human mind, decoding reality and all that, they just work together. And of course, governments are always using some sort of magic in their spycraft, so they know what's going on. And I mean, I'm sure we know that the Russians and the Americans were doing the staring at goats. What do you call it? Remote viewing. But that was something after World War II, right, Graham?
Oh yeah, no,
yeah, John Dee's a good one. John Dee was a spy. Yeah,
I was going to mention John Dee. John Dee was Queen Elizabeth I spy master. And cryptographist. Yep. The original 007. Exactly. Now go ahead.
Yeah. Did you say before that they took a dead body and planted stuff on it and let it wash ashore as with false information?
Yeah.
You know what? I don't know if you're a fan of The Prisoner, but there was one of the episodes of The Prisoner that's exactly what happened. There was a body that washed up with a radio on it.
Oh yeah,
remember that?
Yeah, no, I'm a huge fan of The Prisoner. That's one of the best shows ever on television, in my opinion.
Yeah, you remember the episode then where the body washes ashore? Dance of the Dead, actually.
Yeah, no, definitely I like that it was a continuation, in theory, at least, of Secret Agent Man before
Right.
that.
Danger Man. That's
Yeah.
a controversy. Some people say yes, some people say no. Some people said the prisoner was John Drake. Some people say no.
Yeah.
It's amazing the Germans didn't make more use of computers in code breaking, or did they? Conrad Zuse was very, advanced in terms of the machines that he made in Germany during the war, but they didn't seem to use them. Not that I've read. What do you know about that, Graham?
No, they seem to have gone more for the applications, like for the rockets, and that was one of the in Dr. Hilton's quotes, where they went for the rockets and the impressive, planes and machines sort of approach, and they didn't. And in all honesty, if I remember right, they were getting most of their computing from IBM. Because IBM had big contracts with Germans, and we're doing a lot of the machines for the Germans.
I'm not sure about that. I never read that. I know most of the IBM stuff during the war was punch card stuff. I have to look that up though. But yeah, I don't know if you know about the work of Conrad Zuse, but I actually saw a couple of his machines. There's a computer history museum in Mountain View, California, that I was a docent for a while, and I used to give tours. And one of the Zeus machines, I think it was a Z3, I'm not sure, but and that was one of the later ones. But the Z2 was done in the early 40s. So, but it doesn't seem that he was really given much. Maybe the Germans were more mechanical. They were hardware oriented.
Yeah, no, that was the sense that I had, and no, I haven't. I'm not aware of Zeus's stuff. I was going to say I don't know. There was the old grinder. I forget what they're called now. It's the alternative to the slide rule that would do calculations that way. It looked kind of like a pepper grinder. Yeah,
I've seen one. Yeah, the Computer History Museum actually had one. In fact, a friend of mine that I used to work with collects them. He had one or two.
Yeah, those are neat. I have an old log slide rule that I keep around just because I've learned how to use them when I was a kid, and it's kind of cool to have.
Yeah, I got mine too. The Kufel and Esser, right? The K and E slide rule. I used to hang it up on my cube years ago, and I said, in case of emergency, power failure or something.
Yeah, I wonder how ChatGPT would handle it.
Yeah, I don't know if it even knows about slide rules.
What do you think about all this AI gold rush, Graham? What's going on? I mean, telling people in other jobs and companies, I've been using AI for a while, but all of a sudden it just really hit the public consciousness. It's obviously these things aren't accident. Why suddenly we have this deluge of AI software and solutions and all that?
I was going to say what always jumps into my mind is getting people to trust it, getting people to trust AI and use AI to think for them, because that's one of the patterns I notice is there's a whole lot of trying to get people to do less thinking for themselves.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think that might be a trust, because when I used AI, I mean, a while ago, I was the only person in my department who would use it. Everybody was afraid or whatever. I was like, you got to have the right attitude. Treat it like your assistant, like it's Igor. Then it works well. The old saying, the mind is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. It's the same thing with AI. Make it a part. Put it down there and it will work. I think my productivity's gone up like 10%, but I know how to use Chat GPT and all those other things. I just
where we really need it is those damn touch tone menus that you get. Like you call the drugstore or whatever, press 1 if you want to talk to me, press 2 otherwise. All right, press 1. Press 1 if you want the pharmacy, press 2 if you want that, and then press, and then 50 times later, you're sitting there, your fingers falling off because you're pressing all sorts of buttons. If ChatGPT, or some other AI that could understand natural language could be on there, he's like, give me the pharmacy, don't give me any crap. Yes, sir. That's what I want AI to do.
Yeah, I was going to say the big downfall that I know that from the AI people that they say with ChatGPT is there's no way to know it's telling you the truth. It's designed to sound convincing, but what it's actually saying may or may not actually be true because it's basically scanning the internet, and it could be pulling bad information instead of good ones to tell you.
Garbage
And
in,
that's
garbage out.
the one place that a lot of people have sat there and said it's going to totally revolutionize things is for computer coders.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's so much faster for them to just tell one of those chat GPT to do it, and it'll spit out the code almost perfectly, and it saves them so much time.
Yeah, I've used that too. Yeah, for HTML or CSS, it's like bang, perfect. But yeah, I've caught it with many mistakes. I always double check. So, but what are you gonna do? This is the world we live in. This is the matrix. This is the world of code. There's always gonna be code. There's always gonna be simulation, and we continue to create models to decipher this reality. So, unless I think we are at the end. Oh, Graham just got beamed up to the Enterprise, but he is back. Unless you have anything else to say, Graham, or anything you want to declare or admit that you are Iron Man, we can probably wrap things up.
No, I wish I had that house. That was a sweet house. No, it's been wonderful to be on here, Miguel, and looking forward to next time and helping you out with your Patreon and all that one, and getting some more snippets out to people.
Yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be very educational, people. It's you're going to learn so much, and we're going to have some good chats on all these topics behind the scenes. So check it out. So for the audience, thank you very much for being there. Some cool comments. I know it seems a little away from the Aeon Byte typical shows, but as I sometimes say, variety is the spice of gnosis, and this seemed like it was a good thing to do for various reasons that we've discussed. And yeah, in a couple of days, we'll have David Block discussing Belial and other metaphysics. So I guess first, Vance, thanks for keeping us company in this code.
No problem. Actually, I have to announce that this entire program was a secret code, and if you can decode it, you'll know all the secrets of the universe.
42 there. Can I go now?
Yeah, you have to decode the 42.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Well, awesome. Yeah, and I'm going to say again, Shashparilla. Always wanted to say that. Thank you very much. And well, Graham, thanks as always for joining us, and we will talk sooner rather than later.
Yeah, Graham, great hanging out with you. Fascinating stuff.
As always. All right, everybody, have a good rest of your Tuesday. And as I always say, write your own gospel, live your own myth. Hello and goodbye as always. Take care, everyone.